I'm Coulter One-Kite. I'm already into the 420, damn it!
You know I blame it on industry. I blame it on my own hypocrisy. Miseducation and politicians. No one's willing to step up and speak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net as well as over at 420radio.ca. Tonight, I am joined by my joint host, Alicia Yashcheshen, and she is a guest that has battled in the streets and in the courts. But before we find out more, it's time to talk news with Alicia. Right, Alicia?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. And yourself?
Oh, it's great, except it's pretty cold in Saskatchewan, but to be expected.
Well, I've got freeze and rain warnings here. So
Yeah,
we're a
I think
little
there's
warmer than
something
you.
similar.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they're talking like 8 degrees here for the next 2 days. And then it's going to drop back down again to like minus 20. You know, we just went through all this minus 30 stuff.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're back in the cold yourself, you said, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, yes. Well, you know, what can we do? There's not much we can do. You know, we can't just, all we got to do, we got to find a nice warm building to stay in. Other than that, it's cold out on the street for sure. So, all right, Alicia, I haven't talked to you since the middle of December. The last show you did was on December the 10th. And
2017.
That's right, last year. And so right after the show, I went, I forgot to mention this to Alicia. So I'm going to do it now. How's that? I remembered.
Sounds good.
Okay, I got to say congratulations to you.
Oh.
Yeah, congratulations on being part of the Pace Radio Show, the award-winning Pace Radio Show. We came in second place for podcasts at the Canadian Cannabis Awards that were held at the Lift event at the end of November.
Well, thank you, and ditto. Congratulations back. That's awesome. What an honor.
There you go. I forgot to say something to her. Well, she may know or she may not know. I know I posted it and stuff like that, but I just haven't talked to you yet. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to mention it. It's still news. Still news, right?
Well, I appreciate you mentioning it. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. We were nominated by somebody. I don't know who. And then it was voted on by the public. And in the end, we ended up coming in second place with the other two podcasts were video, and we're the only radio podcast of the three.
Cool.
Yeah. I thought you'd like to know that. So, all right.
Awesome.
Talking about things to know. You know, every time I've talked to you, well, at that time and before then, I could never never knew what the plan was in Saskatchewan when it came to the cannabis issue and the legalization. But I've seen some stuff in the news lately. And being that's where you're located, I thought you might like to talk about that.
For sure. I'd like to get on my soapbox about this one.
Well, I'm going to give you a few minutes to get up on that soapbox. Let's see. 60 locations. Is that going to serve the province of Saskatchewan?
Well, the thing is like, okay, why are we setting these arbitrary numbers?
I don't know.
Do we set arbitrary numbers on restaurants or bars or outlets that can sell cigarettes?
I don't know. Does your liquor association, liquor and gaming authority, does it limit the number of alcohol retail locations?
Well, see, in Saskatchewan, they're government-ran stores.
Right. Yeah. It'd be similar to here in Ontario, wouldn't they? Same idea?
Well, I think so. And the thing is they recently opened that market to private liquor stores, but they're very, far in between. So I'm not sure. in terms of that. But I just think it's kind of silly to be able to say, okay, well, we're going to only allow 60 stores, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's just like create good laws so that people don't have to go and later challenge them in the courts. Like bad law and creating bad law is shameful. That should be illegal in itself. You have politicians creating bad laws, and then people are going to go and have to fight those bad laws in court and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars when we could have done it right the first time.
Do it right now.
Exactly, and reap the benefits like Colorado is. They have smart legislation where we are creating a bunch of dumb, bad law.
Yeah. Now they see here these are gonna be private stores. They're gonna have to get a permit of some sort, license.
And that's fine.
To be able to do it. Yeah, but they're gonna put these 60 stores in 40 municipalities and First Nations locations across the province. So, like, you know, would you get locations that were really big that would be maybe under, you know, supplied, I guess, as far as...
Well, for instance, like the city of Saskatoon, where they're allowing only 7 stores. Is there 7 bars in the city of Saskatoon? No.
Oh, isn't there? You'd have more. You would have more cannabis licenses in Saskatoon than you would have bars.
Oh no, you'd have more bars than you would cannabis license. But what I'm saying is, why arbitrarily limit the amount? If we want to have 50 stores in one city, what's the issue? If you can all it in a free market, what is the issue?
Grant. Yeah, that's what we'd like to see.
Right? So these like monopolies that they're trying to create, they're not going to work and they're going to backfire. And so again, people are going to have to take these bad laws to court to get like reasonable solutions, when the reasonable solution is just creating good laws that are very vague and limited. Like you don't need such regulation because then you create all of these platforms for discrimination and for violation of human rights. And so it's just like make it very vague. Just as far as I'm concerned, we should just repeal prohibition like they did with alcohol and be done with it.
Yes. I know a fellow who's talked quite a bit about repeal over the years, and I know I was cheering on legalization, and as we get to this point, you know, I gotta say, geez, you know, he was right. Should be yelling repeal. Now, I also see here that, you know, maybe they've come up with a store idea, but they're not really communicating a lot to the municipalities either. Things are still pretty vague that way.
Well, and the thing is there should be a dollar amount or a percentage that's allocated to cities. But
what's the age limit?
I don't know. Have you seen anything? I haven't.
I got 3 articles right here in front of me. CBC article, some other article, CTV or something, and actually a Regina Leader Post, your own newspaper. And I don't see anything.
Well, I suppose it's probably 19 like alcohol is. Like you have to be 19 in order to access alcohol here. So I'm assuming that it's probably 19 as well. But I just think that they should, even in Saskatchewan, they should just say that you need a permit to run a lawful business like you do alcohol establishments and call it a day.
Yeah. Well, they're going on about they want your parks and schools and stuff like that. I know, like, our drinking establishments away from parks and schools, and you know we're hearing that all the way across the country, parks and schools and other things like that. But I don't know. I know that alcohol is served in parks. You ever go to a Blue Jay game?
Well, exactly. It's just irrational reefer madness, like updated, if you will. Like it's insanity to suggest that you can't have a cannabis establishment by a school, and like why? Like fundamentally, like why? Because it's what, like not in good like habit, or like, but you can have a bar, like in a close vicinity, you know. So the discrimination.
Well, I remember with
right?
With vape on the lake, and I'm sure our guests can talk about this a little bit. But when they will go past the some of them would go past the vape lounge heading to the school, and people were worried about, the kids going past this establishment there, the business there, the vapor lounge, but yet the vapor lounge was set up that nobody could see inside it. So what were they going to see? People are inside. They're not hanging around out front. They're inside, right? So, all right, Alicia, shall we move on?
We shall.
Okay, it's time to welcome our guest, who I said has battled on the street and in the courts. It's time to welcome Erin Goodwin to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Erin. How are you?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, appreciate you coming on the show and coming and talking to our listeners and answering 1,000 questions. I don't know if we'll get that many tonight, but we'll try.
I'll do my best.
So, but Erin, you're not far from me, so I imagine you're probably going through the same weather pattern I'm going. Let's get some freezing rain and all that.
Yeah, I'm glad my car's parked underground and not outside. I don't have to deal with shoveling snow very much. But, yeah, most times I'm hibernating when it gets that cold.
Yeah, I try my best. I know, Alicia, I'm sure you do too.
Oh, for sure.
So, all right. Well, let's get the show on the go. And Alicia, you can lead off with questions. And as always, I'll just jump in as we go along.
Sounds good. So, Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alicia.
So I guess my first question is what brought you to cannabis, and how did you become involved in the cannabis movement?
I started smoking marijuana in high school, like many people are introduced to it at that age in my mid to late teens. And, I immediately enjoyed my experiences and the people I was meeting and how it made me feel. And so I think I used it initially for a lot of social anxiety, and then I was just attracted to the lifestyle. I like going to concerts, and I would drink alcohol, but I just didn't get the same positive effects as I would from marijuana. And over the years, I just became a daily habitual smoker. And I guess I lived near Toronto Hemp Company, and I had been a customer for years for there. And I studied radio and television and was a waitress, and then finding the job at Vapor Central, and I met my husband there, and it just felt like the perfect fit for me with all my experiences, getting to do live stream, and then also the service industry, but through cannabis. It was like a dream come true. And that introduced me to activism, being at Vapor Central and being a part of the community and movement that I didn't even know existed. I'd been to the Global Marijuana March before, but I just didn't realize there was such an active scene in the city. And I was excited to be thrust into the center of it, being in the lounge environment and getting to meet so many people over the years, and eventually opening my own lounge, Goodweed's Lounge, which got raided shortly. It's funny because just 2 years ago, I was naive to think that, that model of a vapor lounge that was dispensing single servings could be successful. But, the raids that have come down on Toronto were, I guess you could foresee them coming because Toronto's not been as open as the West Coast in terms of access. Even vapor lounges, when I first started working, we were fearful then that we could get raided as being just a place to consume. So, Kindred Cafe had been raided not too long before I got involved in the industry. So I got to hear all the stories and experiences that people who had gone through raids had heard. And I guess I just felt like it was a good fit for me. I was willing to accept the consequences, knowing what I was getting into. Like Chris, my husband, when he interviewed me, and every person I ever interviewed, I warned them that, this is an illegal industry. We're asking you to break the law, and as a result, you could get arrested. You could end up with a conviction. You could be charged. And, I guess going into the raids that happened with Project Claudia and stuff, mentally, I've been preparing for that for years. And it's been a crazy, wild ride, and I'm looking forward to the future because in many ways it feels like it's just getting started.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back. So can you explain to our listeners what Project Claudia was?
Well, in 2 years ago, I had been raided at Goodweed's Lounge in January of 2016, and that was, 5-6 months before Project Claudia, which was a mass raid on dispensaries in Toronto. They raided over 40 locations in one day at one go, and it was like the big first hit. Weeds had been operating for a while, and several other companies from BC came to Ontario and started opening up locations, thinking that, Ontario was going to be just as tolerant as BC had been. And it took some time for Toronto to, pull back, but after hundreds opened in the city, they decided to start raiding. And, it didn't prevent more and more from opening, but I'm sure some people, that were involved got out at that point because, it's scary getting arrested and going through all that. And even some of the bud tenders, I feel bad for them because in many ways, I don't think they knew what they were getting into. But, when you're breaking the law, especially openly, there are going to be consequences. So Project Claudia happened, I think, May 26, 2016. And the next day, like the 27th of May, I helped open Cannabis Culture. I was a manager at Queen Street West, 801 in Toronto, Queen Street West. And we were in the news saying, at that point, most places were medical dispensaries, anywhere from strict medical, where you had to have your LP and doctor's signature, and then others were more relaxed, where you could just fill out a form claiming to be medical or show a prescription from your doctor for any kind of pharmaceutical, and they would let you access. So there were a range of medical dispensaries, and when we opened the day after Project Claudia, Cannabis Culture, we announced that we were going to be full recreational, that we weren't going to be asking for any kind of medical validation. And that was a big step as well. And, in many ways, other dispensaries that were medical have a stronger case in court than a recreational facility would, because we are clearly just breaking the law openly. I do think providing that access to so many people was important, and we changed lives. And like when I got arrested and my photo with my handcuffs and the peace sign, that encouraged a lot of dispensary owners and bud tenders to keep going and pushing through, that we're on the right side of history and there's nothing to be shameful of, but you do have to be aware of the consequences and the risks that we're taking.
Okay, so take me back to the police treatment. How did the police treat you during the raids?
Well, before my Goodweeds arrest, I had never been arrested. I've been with my husband when he's been arrested on 2 separate occasions, and he's been arrested dozens of times. But the police are never really cruel. They treat you with dignity and respect. In my experience, it's like almost a SWAT team raid when a dozen officers and their full gear come in, and they start covering up the windows immediately. One of the first things they do is unplug all the cameras. They don't want to be videotaped. So they'll unplug everything. We'll go around to all the outlets and unplug everything in the room, and they'll block the windows so that people can't see what's going on inside. And each time at Goodweeds, none of the customers ever got arrested. They usually know who's behind the counter and who's working. So my husband and I got arrested. Jamie McConnell was actually there at our Goodweeds Lounge arrest, and the officers cuffed him as well. And we convinced him that he hadn't started working for us yet, that we were interviewing him and stuff, but that he wasn't working yet. So they let Jamie go during that raid, and it was just Chris and I. One of our customers at the time was on house arrest, and he also had to spend the night in jail that night. And then each raid arrest I've gone through, so 3 after that, the police it's pretty standard procedure. They take your purse and your belongings, they cuff you, you get transported in a car by yourself to a police station. You get put into a room that's like an interrogation room. they let you call your lawyer, your mom or dad or sibling or family, whoever you can call, for a surety, which is someone who can come help bail you out at court the next day. And like being in jail sucks. Being confined is not fun. Like, I'm lucky that I have family support, that I know that I can rely on other people. Not everyone is that lucky. Like Matt Murnaugh years ago had to spend 2 weeks in the Don Valley jail because he didn't have a surety. And he wrote a whole article about that. But like each time it's freezing cold, you're stuck on concrete, it's uncomfortable, it's not the cleanest place to be, and just the mental and anxiety you go through being confined like that, like not pleasurable. You'll hear other people in cells like crying or screaming out at the guards a lot. And I think being mentally strong is one of the most important things to get through it. Having a sweater helps too, but it's just an uncomfortable, torturous time. And from the interrogation room, I got switched to another cell, and then like in the middle of the night, they wake you up and take you for handprints and photos, and then put you back in another cell. And then in the morning, early in the morning, you get put in a paddy wagon with other people. Sometimes you're cuffed to them, sometimes you're not. Each time it was slightly different procedures, but it's in some ways the same. And drug court is at Old City Hall at Queen and Bay. So it's like every time I got put in the same court, in the same cell at Old City Hall in the morning, and had to wait there for hours and hours, got to talk to my lawyer, went to court. My family was there to help sign and bail me out. And then it still takes hours for the paperwork to get processed. So usually it's like 24 hours or more in lockup. You always hope that, like, if they'd arrest you in the morning, if I could get to court this afternoon and then I don't have to spend the night in jail. And some budtenders were lucky that they just got, when they were arrested, they just got slips of promise to appears. I think because I was a repeat offender, they wanted to make more of an example of me. I also went in the news and told Police Chief Saunders that we're all going to get most of our charges dropped and stuff, and that charging us won't really make a difference. And he didn't like me saying that. But with my Goodweeds charge, Chris, my husband, took the guilty plea, and I got a discharge. So my Goodweeds charges were dropped before I started working at Cannabis Culture.
I liked that place, Goodweeds. I was there.
Yeah, it was a great space, a huge lounge, like main floor.
The bathrooms were all.
The bathrooms were legitimate stalls and urinals. It was a great space, and I really wanted that to last longer. But the community wasn't too happy with us there. We had some complaints, and it created some backlash. But
it's too bad, because like you mentioned earlier, the like a bit of a business model and doing those single serving dabs and that there.
At that time, like, dispensaries had mostly only been raided by not following their own procedures. So dispensaries in the recent years in Ontario that had been raided were ones that had sold to cops. Like a cop tricked them into selling them. So the cop had a bag of weed that was sold to them as evidence. And at the time we thought with Goodweeds that, by serving a dab or a vape bag, that there was no evidence to leave the location, that was all being consumed, and that we thought that in some way it was a loophole to get through their procedures of executing a search warrant and raid. But in the disclosure, they just say that one of their officers came in, one of my employees offered them a $5 dab. They didn't take it and left, and just offering that $5 dab was enough to issue the search warrant.
Wow. That's pretty low standard. Yeah.
And we had just gotten like a shipment from BC like within an hour or so before the raid. So
I don't know, Alicia, if you've ever seen anything like that there over in Saskatchewan, but just think the same idea as going into a bar and ordering shots. You can order different dabs.
Of lounges. Lounges will be more like a bar where after work you don't have to bring your product. You could just come in and most people don't want to carry weed and joints around with them, or like a lot of the wider public would like to not, have that kind of thing on them because it can be stinky and in all kinds of ways. So to be able to just purchase on site, and I think, and that's how vapor lounges will be thriving as well, I believe.
I'm hoping for the same thing down the road, that they approve them to do, dispensing the same as a bar.
Right. And, I like Saskatchewan, it's exciting that they're having private stores there, and these different models across different provinces, we'll see which one is the best model. I think, like, I could see our Ontario distributing to lots of, vapor lounge owners in the future if we had to purchase through the Cannabis Regulation Board and then sell their marijuana individually. That I could see that happening, and the same thing in Saskatchewan, where Alicia was talking about alcohol slowly getting into private. Things like that are happening in Ontario, and it does take court cases, unfortunately, because not everyone agrees with us. We've got lots of people who oppose our things, and the politics are just trying to please everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And then once the courts decide things, unfortunately, people having to pay for all that. But once the courts make decisions, the arguments usually calm down. Mm-hmm. Okay, Alicia, we got about 3 or 4 minutes till we go to our break. So you got another question you want to get in there?
I guess in terms of the judges there, like, how do they treat you? Like, do they like look down on your like civil disobedience, or how do they perceive it?
It's really luck of the draw. Like I said, each experience I had when I got arrested was different. Some of the cops, like, there was almost on each raid, there was like one cop that was a jerk, It was a male the first time, a female the second time, and, it's almost like they're playing a good cop, bad cop game or something, but there's usually one who's just like sticking their nose up at you or something. But a lot of the other cops that tell us that they agree with what we're doing and that they don't have a problem with weed and that they're just doing their job and what their bosses say. And, I've heard budtenders argue with them, even though our lawyers tell us to be quiet. People will say, why don't you stand up for what you believe and things like that? And they say, I'd lose my job, or I'd never get promoted ever if I stood up against my superiors. So, they're all looking out for their own self-interest and doing what they're told, as police officers are supposed to. But it's just unfortunate that the bad laws make police officers so feared. And, when I was a kid, I kind of remember police being like a friendly neighborhood person that you could go up and talk to. Well, I don't think it's looked at that way anymore because of these bad drug laws. And but the judge for Goodweeds was actually really kind, and it was before the massive raids on Project Claudia. So I remember being in court and the judge saying, "Didn't I see like a half dozen of these on my way to court this morning?" And he was actually real lenient. They wanted to give me a possession for marijuana charge, and the judge questioned it, saying, like, what's the point of that? Because I had gotten my medical license in between getting arrested and the court date. And he said, she's a medical user. Why are you going to give her a possession charge? And because the judge argued with the Crown, they dropped that charge in court. And it was a good, if I hadn't had a charge, it would have made it more difficult me going forward with cannabis culture. With my cannabis culture raids, the bail court judges are pretty just rubber stamp and stuff. But for our CC5 court date, that judge wasn't as kind. She had already pre-agreed to the deal that the Crown had offered. So it was all just going through the procedure in court that day. But the Crown and the judge stated that day, our charges and our crimes merit jail time, and that, only because we made the plea deal were we getting off with just probation. So I have 18 months probation, and Mark and Jody got 2 years, and then fines as well. But, if we had gone to court, they probably would have wanted some jail time from us. But, the judges are usually pretty logical, and when they review things and go over the evidence, I think because of oncoming legalization and the laws are about to change, it puts them in a precarious position. And, I've talked to activists across from different provinces. There's Chris Enns out in Nova Scotia. He went into court to try to get his bail varied based on what was happening here in Ontario, and he was successful. So, when it does take money to keep fighting in court, which not everyone has, but the judges do in work out in our favor in the long run. Like you guys were saying, without the judges, we wouldn't be having marijuana legalization and the medical programs that we fought for.
We wouldn't have had legal medical cannabis if it wasn't for the
it's all
judges either.
The judges, so the judges, I think, are pretty logical and fair for the most part, but it can be luck of the draw, and it's the same thing with opening a vapor lounge. All it takes is one pissed off neighbor in the community to make a hassle for you. So
yeah, exactly. Even though it can show that it's improving the situation within the community itself.
Definitely, yeah.
Which has been done. All right, ladies, it's time for break. So we're gonna go. Our listeners are gonna listen to a little bit of music by the Tall Brothers. A song called "I'm Kinda High." It sort of happens when you would, sometimes, hang out with a circle of friends. And I partially dedicate this song to Alicia.
Oh.
I see some of your posts. And then afterwards, we will continue our conversation with Erin. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I'm kinda high. Let me excuse myself. But it seems like it's just moments since we met. I'm kinda high.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck Seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck Seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
A big thank you to our listeners. Because of you, you're listening to the award-winning Pace Radio Show here on Lifestyle Radio.
The following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
CTCP now operates a medicinal cannabis signing clinic. If you want to grow your own medicinal cannabis and are located anywhere in Canada, then I'd like to suggest that you give them a call. They can be reached at 1-613-967-9888. That's 1-613-967-9888, and grow on with CTCP.
Man, have you been to Cannabis yet? Cannabis, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck and wholesaler Nexus. Cannadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Cannadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Cannadays. Have your say without saying a word. Cannadays.ca.
If you think it a little strange, dear, take a puff on this and then you'll dig my sweet refrain, girl, when I sing it again. I'm kinda high, let me excuse.
Hey, we're back. Welcome to the radio show tonight. We're here with Erin and we got Alicia. And we're talking about, just before the break, we were talking about the as far as your court case and what you end up with as far as the charges and, you know, your fines and your probation and stuff like that. Like, are you restricted from, you know, getting out there involved in the community again and, you know, being loud and proud?
No, I don't have any restrictions in that sense. My only thing is I'm not allowed to be dispensing marijuana in any way. But you know, I was arrested several times over the last 2 years, and when I was arrested March 9th of last year, I was put on bail, and at that time I wasn't allowed to talk to my friends, Mark, Jody, or Brittany, and I, you know, having to go to court every month to see just the updates, and we got offered a deal and we tried to negotiate, but the Crown wasn't really willing to budge.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was arrested when we opened 600 Church Street, the cannabis culture location, I was on probation at that time from my previous arrests at Queen Street East and Queen Street West for cannabis culture, being a manager. So I wasn't really able to be like open about being involved with 600 Church Street. So the fact that I wasn't coming out saying I was an owner and operating this facility and managing it, I guess benefited me in terms of my fine, because like Brittany and Chris, my co-accused, both got a $10,000 fine with a $3,000 victim surcharge each. Mark and Jody got like $150,000 fine each with a huge victim surcharge. So theirs is closer to $200,000 each, which is insane. When they first offered that, we were not really willing to accept that. It was so like
and nobody really wants to go to jail. Well, you know, you do this, you know, you could end up in jail, but now
not only could we end up in jail, it would be dragging our bail out over the course of years and having to pay the lawyers' fees over that time. And with the amount of evidence against us, they did serious investigations on us. They, you know, when I was doing runs back and forth to the store every day because 600 Church Street was quite busy, and there was someone in my parking garage. Like I had noticed it weeks prior that there was someone sitting in their car with the car turned on in my underground parking garage. And you know, I feel silly for not thinking that it was a police officer monitoring my comings and goings, but they were monitoring everything, and they were you know, watching everything we were doing, following all our social media, watching the storefront. So, and then when they raided all of our homes. So my whole apartment got tossed. My front door, like when I got back after getting out of jail, I had like a bare wooden door that was replaced on my front door. And even still, like the old apartment number sign on my door is I had to make it one by hand because the police busted my old one, and they said they ordered a new one, but it's not been installed yet. So my door is kind of a bit ghetto compared to all the other ones on the hall. But they tossed everything. They took our home computer. That we were lucky that they left my stepson's computer and our children's devices. They didn't take.
Good. It was good to see that they separated that.
And they also left our medical marijuana. So they left our prescription marijuana. We did have a significant amount of like store products stored here. So they took a huge amount of product and cash out of my apartment and from the store that day. Like a broker came and dropped off tons of product at the store like the night before. I wasn't even aware of it, that got confiscated, that we hadn't even paid for. So, they hit us hard.
Yeah.
But, we've been getting away with it for months, Chris and Mark and I borrowed money to open that location. We had some savings and borrowed some others. So if they had raided and arrested us earlier on, we would have been in debt. The fact that they allowed us to continue for months allowed us to expand and put money back into the business. We made all kinds of improvements to that location, and it was fun being on Church Street.
Yeah. It was a nice place. I visited while I was down for the Karma Cup. Alicia,
right.
Alicia, I'm going to let you jump in here. Get a question in.
Okay, so in terms of this victim surcharge fee that they had tacked on to the fines that you paid, can you explain that to me, how that works in Ontario? Is that like a program or do you know?
I believe it does.
That?
I'm not the most qualified person to discuss it. I didn't mention my fine was the lowest. I only got a $3,000 fine plus a $900 victim surcharge because I wasn't listed as an owner. I was only listed as a manager. So mine was a lot lower. And one of my arrests, I actually had to pay $3,000 to get bailed out. And after the court got settled, I'm supposed to get that money back. So most of my fine has somewhat already been accounted for. But the victim surcharge, like our lawyers told us that's a standard. You cannot fight it. Even everyone who gets convicted has to pay that. And it does really go to help people who have been victims of bad crimes. So it's not even something you'd want to fight because it is going to a good place.
It hasn't got anything to do with the victim in that particular crime. Like you say, it goes into a fund.
It goes into a fund, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay, Alicia, go ahead.
That's nice. So it's like Cannabis's donation to the fund. Okay, that's kind of nice.
Right. So at least it's going to people who are really in need.
Exactly. So what's next?
Chris and I still have a storage locker full of all our old lounge equipment, couches, TVs, like mics, speakers, soundboard. I'd love to open another lounge space. Chris and I are always looking at properties. I've dreamed of opening a hotel that's got a venue space and a restaurant that's all cannabis oriented. But, it's going to take legalization to get to that level of investment in a place. I'm just so excited for our culture and our community to get more that we deserve to have beautiful establishments that we can go to. And I think that's what the future holds. It's hard to say exactly what my next move will be. My husband, Chris, has been investing in the stock market. So he's been, researching a lot and made some profits off of the weed stock because, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with legalization coming, getting in at the ground level. And, I'd love to put all that money back into a beautiful business for our community. I love being in the service industry, being in the cannabis service industry. I like dealing with people, and I'd love to have another place, a lounge of some kind. But I'm not sure how soon that will be. At one point, I thought I should open a gym facility that's cannabis friendly. I've been doing ganja yoga at the House of Yoga in Toronto. And they offer ganja yoga where they have volcanoes and you get to vape and do yoga, and it's all really cool people. And it definitely motivates me to be more active. And I think our community deserves more places. Back when I used to work at Vapor Central, people would always come up with ideas like, you should add arcades, you should add this or that, you should do this kind of, and, you know, I can't wait for more and more entrepreneurs to come up with unique ways for our community to have places to go. Like, we've been hiding in our basements for so long. So, you know, I love the feeling of people coming into a dispensary or a lounge for their first time, and just that life-changing moment where people feel accepted and, you know, not shameful.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. Go ahead. Go ahead, Alicia.
And so I think that, too, that part of that social stigma and getting rid of that stigma is having places like vapor lounges and ganja yoga studios so that you can be accepting of the cannabis community. So here's a little, like, fact or tidbit for you folks. In, like, Saskatchewan, ganja yoga is, like, it seems to be, like, a foreign concept to the people here. They're like, what? They can't seem to put the two together, but that could be a Saskatchewan thing.
Yeah, it takes time. You know, the place I go to has been doing it for years, and they've built up a community. They're at the back of a head shop, so they have a head shop in front, and then you walk through it to get to the studio space in the back. But I've heard more and more private people talking about doing ganja yoga, and people used to want to do that at the Vapor Lounge. I didn't like the idea of it there just because glass breaks and stuff like that. I don't think it's the best space. Yeah. But if we had a basement or something, I would definitely want to be doing ganja yoga. And like I said, I think that, you know, for the cannabis community, we want to be healthy and fit, and we do want to socialize too. So I think that a gym facility that allows cannabis consumption would be like a gold mine for people, for someone. But the investment in equipment and everything, and as a business owner, there's always a risk going into one of these enterprises. You can lose all your savings. So it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, and then the right location and all the right factors lining up. It's hard work, but I'm excited that legalization is going to get more and more people willing to do it because there'll be less risk.
Oh, for sure. And so I guess in terms of legalization, like, how do you foresee it expanding? Like, to you, what's the ultimate form of legalization?
It's hard to see how it'll all play out. You know, I think people are really disappointed with the government monopolies, and I'm not thrilled about it either. I'd much rather see an open free market model. But I definitely foresaw this coming, at least in Ontario. You know, these raids had, you know, there was motivation behind them because the government does want to clamp down and have a monopoly on marijuana distribution. I think that over time, the stigma will be lessened. I almost feel like, you know, this legalization is legitimizing a lot of people's work. We've been working for this for years, and people used to tell us it was never going to happen. And, you know, I remember protesting one time in Niagara Falls, and Stephen Harper was at some hotel, and I was outside with a flag, and someone drove by and was like, go do something that's important, or like just, and people have said that, like, marijuana, you could, if you wanted to, you could get away with smoking marijuana and never get arrested as long as you followed all the rules and hid what you were doing. So we are pretty lucky here in Canada compared to other countries where it's so serious. So
you didn't get your head cut off.
In ways. Yeah, we're somewhat spoiled in ways. Like the crimes that I've committed in the past, over the last decade, doing this activism, in another country, I would get like life in prison for this. So I feel like I was born in the right place in the right time to just experience what we're going through here in Canada. And I'm excited that we're setting an example for the rest of the world. You know, my parents, who hated my cannabis use growing up, thought I was ruining my life. And, you know, they're more inclined to it with health issues as they get older. The legalization and the government sanctioning it, I think, you know, for all of us in the community, we have been demanding this and wanting it to come for so long. But for a lot of other people, it's like opening their minds up to cannabis as an alternate option. So I'm just excited for that wave of effect to happen on the masses, that it's not as bad as people have made it out to be in the past, the reefer madness that you're talking about. And even with driving legislation, like I've always driven and smoked marijuana my whole driving experience, but a lot of people are against that. I remember one time I had cousins from the States who tried our marijuana, and it was much more intense for them than what they were used to down in North Carolina. And one of my cousins didn't feel comfortable with me driving us back to my parents' house after the amount I had consumed. And it took me like a half hour to convince her that I was sober and capable enough to drive under the influence. But a lot of people don't feel like the two mix. You see the commercials running on TV saying, don't drink, don't drive while high. And, for some people, they might be impaired while smoking cannabis. But I think most users that smoke cannabis and are impaired, they choose not to drive. You're much more aware of your senses. So a lot of people drive safely under the influence of cannabis. And I think over the years, that'll be proven.
Yep. Now, you mentioned about ruining your life. I think probably all of us go through that, where our parents believe cannabis use was going to ruin our lives. But you're able to show that, it didn't ruin your lives. You're able to run a business, learn different skills, and create jobs for other people. But
I think my parents are proud of me now.
The laws against them is what is going to ruin anything. If something's going to ruin it, it's going to be the laws against it, because now you have, a criminal record, and they've got this regulation saying, if you have a criminal record, you can't have a cannabis business, and so on and so forth.
Well, more that you can't be the chief financial, you can't be the chief in charge, but you can still be affiliated.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can still work in the industry. There's just certain positions that you're not allowed to have, and I think that over time will change.
Well, look in California. They turned around and said they invited the people,
right,
to get involved.
I would love to see that happen.
It should have happened.
Us get some sort of early bird access, because we've been fighting for it.
Yes.
But it's the end of prohibition. No one said it was going to be easy and we're going to get exactly what we want. It's a continued effort, and I think that even in our lifetime, we'll still have to be dealing with the stigma and the reefer madness that we'll have to fight against. But, I just believe it's getting better and better, and more people are aware of the actual benefits. Dana Larson, when I last saw him, he was talking about in the future, we'll probably see CBD in almost all food at the grocery store. We'll all be eating CBD. It'll just become normal and better for society.
Well, it's a good health supplement to be added to everybody's diet, that's for sure.
Right.
So, okay, Alicia, you there?
Certainly I am. So I'm interested in your activism and some of your best memories of doing those protests and attending those rallies and organizing them, because I remember that. I just loved that part of activism. So I'd like your stories.
Yeah. Well, over the years, I've gone to several different rallies. When Calm got raided years ago in Toronto, we attended the police station and outside Old City Hall. We actually were we were at a rally in front of Calm outside Old City Hall, and just a teenager or someone that had showed up asked if they could smoke a joint, and we said, yeah, we're cool. And the police came up and tried to arrest them, and then several activists got in and tried to hug the power, which is a technique David Mama Levine advocates in Vancouver, where if everyone hugs the person getting arrested, the police have to kind of back down. It does take a significant amount of people to make that method work. So with just 2 or 3 people, they were people got pulled off and arrested as well at that court. Otherwise, each time when Mark was away, we did this campaign where we were going around to conservative MPs' offices, groups of us, and occupying the office. And Alison Murden was one of the first to come and bring her vaporizer, and we started vaping in MP's offices. And Naomi Poley, I think, just smoked a joint with the guts she's got inside an MP's office. When we went to Niagara Falls, it was much more intense. They tried to lock us out of that MP's office, and Jacob Hunter, who was there, and Eric Compton ended up getting arrested. We tried to hug power them too, and to no avail. They had to go back to court dates and stuff for months after. It's been a long fight over the years, and just going through that and being with people, and you feel like you're making a difference, but you're also standing up for yourself and what you believe in. And I think a lot of people admire that, and it inspires me being around other people doing it. So, I have a stash of cannabis flags that I break out every time I go, and I have my megaphone. So, it's, some people get nervous, but Mark Emery has always said to just show up. It's one of the most important things. And I think that community and being together, it strengthens us all.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about getting together, those global marijuana marches, I know over the years they've been huge. And I can remember, like, at one time the only rally or only march that there was the 420 down at Niagara Falls on the 420 highway, or the overpass over top of it. And from those years, it's just grown and expanded, and so many different communities have had 420s, and
each time it inspires different people to get going and motivated, and it's like a rippling effect of people, becoming more active.
Yeah, exactly.
And in 420 Toronto, which we organize, and it's usually Yonge and Dundas Square, but this year it's moving to Nathan Phillips Square. Me and my husband Chris are in the process of planning that. We've always looked up to what they do in Vancouver, the 420 in Vancouver, and the farmers market, and how much access there is. For years we felt like Ontario was behind in that regard, that we didn't have open farmers markets, that, the general population wasn't able to access their choice of marijuana. You could only get who you knew, the best for you knew from, like, whatever dealer you knew, and some people didn't have dealers, and, it's exciting to see the access grow and more people coming out of the cannabis closet over the years. It's just beautiful watching those things grow and hopefully continue to grow.
That's awesome. And so, do you plan the 420 for Toronto then? Is that this
Yeah. So for years we were just taking over Yonge and Dundas Square. We'd show up and take over the stage and just hold a rally of the few hundred people that would show up. And then Herb, he won the lottery out in BC, and like right when he accepted the check, I'm pretty sure he was smoking a joint, and he said that he was going to donate his winnings to the 420 Canada movement. And he donated lots of money across the country to many different 420 rallies. And his donation that year gave us the ability to work with the city of Toronto and book out Yonge and Dundas Square officially. That square, the main hub at Yonge and Dundas, is a private-public partnership. So it's a private company running it, but it's sort of a public square. They're supposed to give access to the community. And we've had Kristen Wong-Tam, our city councillor, write us a letter of recommendation that we're good for the community, and they actually waived some of the fees.
She was a good supporter.
Yeah, she has been a great supporter. And,
go ahead.
Yeah, just being able to pay for the sound equipment and pay for the security and the staffing at Yonge and Dundas Square, and then putting vendors up and stuff, seeing the progression where now for the past 2 years, we've had to have part of the street shut down because of just the overflow of the square that, they didn't even want to give us Yonge and Dundas Square last year because they were scared of safety concerns for being too dense a crowd. And the only reason they let us do it there last year was on the fact that we said we would definitely move it next year. So this year we're excited to expand and be right in front of City Hall and huge space in Square.
How about we go for a commercial break, and we'll come back with your new location. You can tell everybody about it. All right. Okay. All right. So it's off to a commercial break. Time to hear some more of the Tall Brothers and their song "I'm Kinda High." You know, that's sort of showed in the last break. Then we'll continue our conversation with our guest, Erin Goodwin. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show here at LifestyleRadio.net.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I'm kinda high, let me excuse myself, but it seems like it's just moments since we met. I'm kinda high, let me introduce myself.
Man, have you been to Cannabis yet? Cannabis, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop at 19 Bridge Street West. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got seeds, soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Get top quality seeds from top suppliers like Canuck and wholesaler Nexus. Cannadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Cannadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. 19 Bridge Street West, Campbellford. Cannadays. Have your say without saying a word. Cannadays.ca.
Hi, this is Grham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here on LifestyleRadio.ca.
Canada, the time to act is now. These days, your customers are seeking variety. Increase your earning potential by expanding your inventory with CC Nexus, Canada's largest cannabis seed wholesaler. CC Nexus stocks over 60 reputable breeders, including Canuck seeds, with a wealth of autoflower, regular, feminized, and CBD strains. All first-time customers will receive a free pack of Canuck seeds, plus a mug, t-shirt, and additional promotional materials. Add strains and increase your profit with CC Nexus, your Canadian-owned and operated wholesaler of cannabis seeds. Discreet, worldwide stealth shipping from Canada, supporting you locally. Call today, 1-844-843-7995, 1-844-843-7995, or visit us at ccnexus.global.
If you think it a little strange, dear, take a puff on this and then you'll dig my sweet refrain, girl, when I sing it again. I'm kinda high, let me excuse myself, but it seems like it's just moments since we met. I'm
Hey, we're back, and thanks for tuning into the program. We are being broadcasted, as always, lifestyleradio.ca, and at Spreaker. You can catch us there. Podcasts available afterwards at Mixcloud, YouTube, other social media such as iTunes. If you're down in the U.S., you can find us at iHeartRadio. Unfortunately, it's not available here in Canada on iHeart, but hey, we reached the U.S., a big audience down there. Today on the program, we got our guest, Erin Goodwin, and my joint host, Alicia Yashcheshen. Okay, just before the break, ladies, we were talking about the 420. It was at Yonge and Dundas Square. It's grown so large. City was wanting to cancel you. And Erin, you mentioned you got a new location, Nathan Phillips Square. I used to go there as a kid. I'd love to go there sometime as a cannabis advocate. So what's going to happen?
It's exciting. Like over the years, we've grown from just the grassroots get-togethers at 420 where we were fearful of arrests, where now we have the police almost working with us, you know, to make the event happen. They stand by and make sure things are safe for everyone. And, you know, being at Yonge and Dundas Square was so fun to be in the hub of Toronto and like one of the busiest intersections. But it's also just as exciting to move to a space that's like twice as big where we can really grow and expand, to be in front of City Hall where, you know, legislation is going to be happening about what goes on in our city with legalization coming. So making a big stand in front of our city government will be perfect. It'll be ideal for our last big hurrah before legalization.
Well, that would allow the councillors to look out the window and see how much support that there really is.
Right.
So have you ever considered?
You know, some of the councillors are on our side and some aren't, and you know, some people get offended by the smell and some don't. But just the mass numbers of people that come out and are open about use and openly defying the laws, you know, it's definitely a sight to see.
Yes, most definitely is, and you know, even though, like, say next year cannabis is legal, it's no reason to just stop with the 420 rallies. I can see them actually, you know, maybe they'll even grow because the people who were concerned about people that were concerned about being present there may be more open to it now because now it's legal.
Yeah, I'd love to see 420 and Gold Marijuana March both grow as with legalization coming, you know, like Pride Toronto, where they get the streets shut down and late serving licenses and all kinds of things, and they've become much more accepted, but they still are fighting for their rights. I see a similar future for us that, you know, in many ways we'll be recognized and legitimized, but still we'll have to keep fighting for what's right.
That's right.
I'd love to see weekend-long festivals and events, and you know, a lot more cannabis events have been happening over the past years, and to see more cannabis-friendly facilities able to accommodate us, it'll be exciting.
I had a question sent to me that I'll ask you, and then I'll hand you back over to Alicia. Did you ever consider or think about the islands?
The Toronto Island?
Yeah, was it a good idea, bad idea? Was it ever thought of?
It's been suggested and stuff. I don't know if we've ever thought of it. You know, especially maybe once legalization, that could be an ideal location. But we've always wanted to be more in your face with it, not out of the way.
Okay. So that would be
out of the way. And the island did have a lot of issues this past year with flooding. Like they didn't open the island up until I think August or so. So
yeah, you got that right on that point. Yeah, okay. And I was just thinking that, you know, it is sort of a tourist thing. People do go there. A lot of people do go over there, but I know the type of advocacy work that Chris and everybody's been involved in the past, and so when you say in your face, I know what you mean. So okay, Alicia, over to you.
Well, thank you, Al. So, in terms of 420, you were saying that some of the city councillors accept you and some don't. So, has your event become like a sponsored kind of thing, like they have in BC? Is that like, am I like picturing that correctly? Or?
Yeah, we do have Crop King Seeds was a major sponsor. They give money every year and have a big backdrop. And we have several other sponsors that pay for banners to go up, and then a lot of the vendors as well are all paying their fees to be able to operate. So yeah, we do get sponsors, and I would love to see them grow. We've had food trucks as well at our event, and we were actually required to, based on the amount of people we were bringing in. Working with the people at Yonge and Dundas Square who do events all the time. You know, we're one of the events that's the most filled up for the year, so they have to take safety procedures, having proper exits for the crowd, and you know, this year we had to put up more fencing and stuff as a precaution for the crowds. And we talked about weather on the break at 420. It's always such a It's always up in the air because we've had good years where it's been beautiful and sunny, and then we've had some rough years where it's rained and even snowed in the morning of 420, and we're always hoping for the best weather possible. You know, Cannabis Day, I guess, in Vancouver is luckier with their time of year that they usually always have nice weather. But even then, on Cannabis Day, sometimes you get rain. So, especially as an outdoor event, the weather is so imperative for having a good time. But you know, people still show up. You know, it's that important that even in the rain, the crowds are there and in stills, and we just huddle together to stay warm.
And so, at those events, like, how much does a booth cost for vendors?
We do different pricing for a half-size small booth and a larger booth. It's gone up over the years. I'm not sure what the price will be this year. We still have to work out negotiations with Yonge and Dundas Square. Nathan Phillips Square. We'll have to go over all the costs of the event and then come up with a proper fee for the vendors. We do try to make it affordable. Like we don't profit too much off of the event. We're pretty much just trying to pay the bills. Because it does cost a lot to book out a space like that and pay for the security and the fencing and the tents.
Well,
the cleanup crew and.
Like I know that I don't know whether it would affect your negotiation with Nathan Phillips Square. Whether you said approximately or what booth was at the old location, the now old location.
Yeah, that's a good question because I would like to know. Like,
we paid. It was about $800 for a half and $1,600 for a full booth last year.
Yeah.
So we tried to make it pretty reasonable. And then from the feedback we got, all the vendors were happy and profitable.
Yeah.
It's one of the most crowded events. You're like non-stop busy all day long.
Yeah, well, we tried to do. We had Kim Cooper was down there, and it was just so loud. It was just so loud.
Yeah, in some ways, people complain about how crowded it gets, but so it's exciting that we're going to be moving to a bigger space, and we'll be able to put up. This past year we had porta potties for the first time, and all kinds of things. We'd love to make it more of a legitimate event and more comfortable for everyone involved. So it's exciting.
And so when you say a more legitimate event, like in the past, you didn't go through the channels because you were just rejected? Is that kind of the...
I guess it was just the means, like I said, with Herb for Herb winning the lottery and donating to us, it showed us that, with the right sponsorship and it set up a model for us that we could have. And it was also just the timing of things that, the year before we started paying for the Yonge and Dundas Square legitimately through the city. The 420 before that, the square was booked by a car company or something like that, and they had blocked off the stage from us. So this whole stage was fenced off, and we had to set up off to the side. And they kind of said to us, we're willing to work with you if you pay. And so it was just a matter of getting the funds for it. And over time, the fact that we were showing up in large numbers and that we, my husband and Chris and I are reasonable people and we were willing to work with them. And they were a great, asset to us because of all their experience that they've had. And they gave us a list of companies and getting tents and fencing. And it was such a great learning experience going through those official channels and seeing how other events operate and growing over the years. Like this year, we bought bigger, better tents, which was better for us because it was a rainy day. And in the past, vendors had to push the water off the top of their roofs with sticks and stuff. And this year, it was better structure for them. And like I said, we had more food trucks this year, and we had more porta potties, which I don't even know if everyone knew the porta potties were there because the space got so crowded. But even with my businesses, I've always tried to make it better and better. You learn each time about how to do things a bit better. So it's exciting to see different, every year you'll get more ideas about how to make it better next year.
Well, I could just imagine the kind of lounge you'll have if the government gets to that point that we talked about earlier, allowing, like a beer, you can get yourself, buy yourself a joint, get yourself a dab while you're out. Right?
I'm so excited because our culture really deserves that.
Yeah.
To have beautiful places to be at.
Yeah. You got anything like that in Saskatchewan?
Certainly not.
You have to
Even
come
in
to
Colorado, they're only just getting lounges and stuff like that.
And you look, Toronto, you got Abby Roach. She's been there, probably 17 years with the Hot Box. So
yeah, and Joey at Underground.
Underground.
The comedy scene in here in Toronto, I think, it's been flourishing over the last years, and I think there's a big correlation between the cannabis comedy scene and the success of seeing different comedians that have gone through our stages, and then them end up on like Conan O'Brien or Colbert and getting Netflix shows and things like that. So it's exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, I know, like through the underground comedy. Well, there was a bit of a circuit amongst the lounges there too, where some of them were going, and it was it's no different than going to a bar and listening to a band. You went out, you had a comedy act up on the stage, everybody had a good time, and
in some of the early days of vapor lounges, like. You couldn't get people to come out and pay the $5 to just smoke their own weed. They would be like, "Why? I will just do that at home." So to have that entertainment factor of like a night out for a cannabis couple, it's it definitely started a movement.
Alicia, they are looking at. Well, I believe the Cannabis Act here in Ontario might have made them illegal, but there's still lots of them around. You got to come over here to Ontario and check out these places.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just thinking maybe I'll just ask for special exemption under the law before the law is introduced to open a vapor lounge. I think that's a big part of the socialization of cannabis and decriminalizing socially using cannabis, because come on, what's the whole premise of 420? They used to hide and smoke pot.
And with the vapor lounge, we were in Ontario, there were tobacco smoking bylaws that you couldn't smoke tobacco indoors because it's harmful to the employees working there. But cannabis was never under that same stipulation. Cannabis isn't harmful when smoked, and those tobacco laws were specific. In more recent years with the e-cigs and people being so brazen with the e-cigs and vaping indoors and stuff, it's created a bit of backlash that's somewhat affected the cannabis scene. But medical marijuana patients fought against those regulations as well. And I believe there will be a place, but it's hard to get over that mentality for non-smokers to understand that cannabis smoke isn't harmful. Even with the LP system, when you're getting your doctor prescription, they tell you the best way to consume is vaporizing. And while that's true health-wise, vaporizing is a good way to use it. A lot of people still like to smoke joints. And as a dispensary owner, I know that the pre-rolls are a very popular item. We couldn't keep them stocked because of the demand. And it's just so strange to me that medical marijuana users don't have access legally to get pre-rolls. That the medical patients aren't, they have to roll their own if they wanted. So we're going to see so many changes with just the stigma and recreational legalization here federally. It's going to be a world-changing event, I think.
Do places or businesses that people don't want, do they end up with long lineups like you guys ended up with?
How do you mean?
How do you mean? Well, I'm just sort of making a joke of the fact that if these places aren't wanted and the public doesn't want them, then why is there big lineups outside of them all the time?
Right.
The people are showing up with their feet and their money and saying that this is what we want.
I know.
So.
Yeah. And still, and there's still dispensaries all over the city, even though there's no cannabis cultures in Toronto anymore. There's lots of dispensaries that are openly selling recreational marijuana, and people still need access. So it's definitely, seeing those lineups, it definitely shows you that there is a huge demand. And
correct.
I think that the government numbers that they're coming up with in Saskatchewan and Ontario of how many stores is definitely not going to meet the needs of Canadians. And I could see them selling out and not having enough supply at these government facilities. So, I don't see the black market ending that quickly. And the fact that we'll all be able to grow marijuana at home is very exciting as well.
No, but there are situations where there's people that are in apartments or condominiums that, might not be able to, due to lease agreements, might not be able to grow 4 plants. Maybe some type of business. It'd be nice if some business
you can buy those little grow things that like tents that are all self-sustaining. And,
true.
There'll be like those fridges that you can grow your herbs and things in. And I think that cannabis users are like the most ingenious when coming up with way arounds and new ideas. So it'll be exciting what we come up with.
Must be the creativity involved in it. Okay, Alicia, we got about 5 more minutes before we get to the shout out.
Alrighty, well, I guess
already, that's right.
What are you looking forward to, like, in the next 5 years, in the next couple of years? Like, what's some goals of yours? What does it look like?
Well, I'm going through some life-changing things personally. I posted on Christmas Day that, I'm pregnant for my first time. I've been a stepmother for years, but thank you.
I saw the post. It was a positive reading of the pen.
Right.
I saw the post.
Chris and I are excited. I love children, and Chris and I have talked about having a child for years, but we always said with being activists in prohibition, it's for families it's not easy, the threats that can come against you. So with legalization coming, it made us more comfortable, and I'm excited that I'm going to be having a baby in July, and they'll be born into a legal cannabis in Canada. So I'll be focused on my child, I guess, and then also what new and exciting business ventures I'm excited to be a part of. I don't know exactly what yet, but I don't know if I might not even have a huge place in the future of the cannabis industry. I'm just excited for everything to grow and the stigmas to change and us to be more accepted as a culture. It's all so exciting to me. And I know that it's not perfect and there's lots to still fight against, but I just think it's getting so much better and it's exciting.
Just imagine having a child on the same day with cannabis comes legal in Canada.
Oh, that's awesome.
They say it's not happening July 1st, but I think it'll happen like the end of June sometime. So.
Well, there's all that big question about that because Trudeau's gone out and said sometime this summer. But I know in November, his justice minister announced or talked about in committee, I believe, that by July.
Right. So, they've always said that. They've said by July 1st. And for some time, Justin has said that it won't be on July 1st. I think they got backlash of the conflict of it being on Canada Day. They didn't like that. But I'm happy if it's sooner than that,
Yes.
I hope that it's on Canada Day, though, because that's such a, what a way to...
It would have been monumental. Yeah.
Well, I've got a version of "Oh Cannabis." If it happens on Canada Day, we can play that.
Yeah. we'll still be celebrating on Cannabis Day.
Yeah.
Is it before?
But I know there are people who are against that. I you know, a friend of mine, Wayne, there at Cannabis, he's held a cannabis day for 7-8 years now, up there in Peterborough, and
right.
Yeah, and there are some people who, yeah, you know, they're against it. But there's people who are,
you know, I'm not a favor of this monopoly that the Ontario government's rolling out, and you know, in the next 2 months, we're probably going to find out locations and what their plans are, and we'll be learning a lot more in the oncoming months. But even, you know, if trying to look at the bigger picture of it all, not on how it affects me personally, I'm just so excited for the progression that our society is making.
Yeah, correct.
We'll still have to keep fighting, and, you know, civil disobedience, in my experience, has always been one of the best methods to attack things that you don't agree with.
That's right.
But, so we'll see. You know, I'm on probation right now, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know. As far as location-wise, city-wise, from where I'm located, I'm about a 45-minute drive to get to one of those cities that's going to end up with a store.
Huh.
Wow.
I can get it a lot closer.
and people will still get it from the black market. So
correct.
But
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
that's for sure.
Can you order online then? Because I think at least Saskatchewan you can order online, but how are they going to police that? Like, so that's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyone will be able to order online as well.
Yeah, as soon as it becomes legal, even if your province doesn't have a system in place, you'll be able to order it online, and you know you'll receive it in 3 days or 4 days, whatever it is.
But I wonder as well how the
police
it through process you.
Yeah, you have to show ID when it's delivered to your house. That's as far as how they police it. And what did you say, Erin, about the LPs?
I don't know.
Oh,
I know that, like, when I get marijuana, I have to sign for it. And I guess I show my
correct.
ID.
And that's what they will do with the general public too. Same idea. But yeah, people like the in-store experience, and you guys, you know, with what you just did, proved all that. You know.
Oh yeah. And that's why the LPs also want to have storefronts of their own. It's because they know that that's what people want as well. Especially when you're purchasing marijuana, like at the dispensary, if someone didn't like a strain that they purchased, we'd allow them to return it in exchange for something else. And, you know, just being able to smell and see everything beforehand, it gives you a lot more confidence as a user.
Yeah. When you see, because like I know I was there at Church Street, I walked in and during the Caramel Cup there was like 25 jars on the counter, and you could see the buds and all that right there in front of you, and instead of getting a picture that's been up there for the last year and a half, you know, you're actually seeing the buds you're going to buy. So
we were testing the buds as well, and we'd get results that would say, you know, this strain has similarities to other strains. So we would have cards that would tell people, you know, if you like this strain, you might like this one and that one as well. And you know, I could see more and more of that is going to be available to us in the future. That you know, you'll have the test, and there'll be descriptions to tell you exactly the effects of the strain you're getting. And and like lots of people have bad experiences with marijuana because they don't get the desired effects. And in the future, I think that you'll be able to narrow exactly what you're looking for out of different strains. So it's exciting.
I agree. Okay, Alicia, have you got anything you want to ask Erin before we do the shout out?
I guess in terms of baby, like, what are you thinking in terms of naming?
Well, we actually already picked the names. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, but we're pretty much deciding that if it's a girl, I'm going to name her Ashley, and Howell is my mother's maiden name, so Ashley Howell Goodwin. And then if it's a boy, we're thinking it's Chris's middle name is Jason, so we're thinking Jason Roland. So J for a boy or Ash for a girl.
Nice. There you go. So are you going to be one of those parents who finds out what the sex of the baby is, or are you going to wait for the big surprise on the day that the baby is born?
I'm going to find out soon. In the next week or so, I'll find out what gender. So I'm excited about that. I don't need to be surprised. I want to know and start planning and thinking.
Okay.
I have a stepson and a stepdaughter, and they both want to know too.
Yes. Okay, Ed, shout out time. So have you got someone you want to, or some place, person, place, thing, website, so on and so forth? We let people know where they can find you on social media, so on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm Erin Ashley Goodwin on Facebook and Erin Ashley Goodwin on Instagram. On Twitter, I'm Erin Goodwin 85. And right now I'm doing lots of cryptocurrency discussions. I think it's an exciting new line to go down that I think cryptocurrency is very exciting. And other than that, I'm really looking forward to 420 Toronto at Nathan Phillips Square. It's
good. Well, where can people? I guess there's no website yet for 420 Toronto as far as the new location in order for people to get any information because you're still negotiating, right?
Correct. We do have 420toronto.org. So 420toronto.org.
That way maybe you can get something started. People can still get a hold of you through that way. So.
Oh, yeah. Good. You can actually buy Justin Trudeau T-shirts and stuff on the website. The exact one.
There you go. Okay, Alicia, have you got a shout-out?
I do. I would like to send a shout-out to the Toronto Lift Awards and everyone or whoever voted for us to win the award we did. And I would throw another shout out to Pace Radio Show and everyone involved with it. And then to Erin for coming on tonight and sharing her stories of activism.
Thank you
so much.
All right.
It's been fun talking to you guys.
It's been great. It's good. It's good time to you, Erin. Okay, you can find Pace at Pace Radio as well as the Pace Radio Show on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're online at pace-online.ca. You message me from there, and we can line you up with some free educational stuff. As always, our thank yous go to our friendly and helpful folks over at CC Nexus. If you're looking for a certain strain, special strains, give them a call. ccnexus.global is the website. Al Rapp, always glad that he finds some way to get the voice out in the air so our voices can be heard. Also, a big thank you to you, Erin, for coming on the program, coming on and talking to us, letting us know how the case is made out, and we look forward to what the future holds.
Thank you so much.
You're
welcome.
Great
work, guys.
Thank you. Alicia, as always, big thank you and hugs for doing what you do and involved here in the program and being part of this award-winning program. This is a team. It takes all of us in order to do this. It's very important. So, all right, and thank you to our listeners. You're all part of our team as well. There's no doubt about that. Okay, thank you, everybody, and good night.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.